Hi aspirants, welcome to the weekly current affairs for economy of this week. The first topic in economy for this week is the corporate tax rate. So why is this in news? In the news it says 2 out of 5 new domestic manufacturing companies incorporated during 2019 to 2020 opted for this 15 percentage tax concession. So we know the government in the last budget announced something called as tax concession, that is 15 percentage tax concession. When reviewing this, how far this is a success, it was found that 2 out of every 5 company have opted for this. This tax concession was actually announced in 2019, and this was announced under the section 115, and this was only for newly incorporated domestic companies. So these are the details you have to know. This is only for domestic companies, and they should be making a fresh investment by the deadline for this is by 2023. So if they are going to do a fresh investment within the year 2023, they have the option to opt for this 15% concessional tax regime. And later on, this was extended by 1 year for until the year 2024. So these are some crucial details. Try to know them. And then further, the corporate tax rate for all the existing companies, and this accounts both for manufacturing and non-manufacturing. So this could be a prelims question. So this is applicable for both manufacturing and non-manufacturing companies. This was cut to 22 percentage. This is excluding the surcharge and cess, because the surcharge and cess will be added later on. The existing percentage of tax was 30 and it was reduced to 22. This is for the existing companies. For new companies, as we saw in the previous slide, it was 15 percentage. And companies accounting for 62.01 percentage of the total income have chosen this concessional tax regime. So this is just an option. Either you can go for this concessional tax regime or you can go for the existing tax regime. It's your own wish. So now in both the cases, that is for new companies and for existing companies, choosing the concessional tax range, it means companies cannot avail exemptions. So if you go for this concessional tax regime, you will not have exemptions, deductions or incentives which are already provided under the old tax regime. So if you feel that the amount of I get from exemptions or deductions or incentives is not very high, in that case I can go and choose for that 15 percentage tax rate. So it is just a calculation depending of that particular company's turnout, how much incentives they can get, how much exceptions or deductions they get. They calculate both the options. Option 1, the original tax regime. Option 2, the new tax rate, that 15% tax rate. So in that old tax rate, what and all you will be getting is, you will be getting exceptions, you will be getting deductions, you will be getting incentives, everything. But in this new tax rate, which is just 15 percentage, you will not get any of these three. So you calculate both and you find which is more profitable for you and you take that. So this is just a choice. We give choice to the manufacturers. It's up to you to take it. So if 62 percentage of the total value produced, those companies have opted for this new tax rate, it means this new tax rate is working well. People are opting for that. And a similar concessional rate regime was also introduced by the central for personal income taxpayers also, and it came to effect in 2021. So under this tax regime, it will assess the willing to forego deductions and exemptions such as those given under ATC, ATD. I hope you know about ATC or ATD. If you give donations or anything for certain organizations, that amount will be not counted for your tax. So that is called as ATC and ATD and all. So if you wish, you want to give up these deductions and exemptions and house rent allowance, leave and travel allowance, and if you don't want any of these special benefits, you can choose to pay tax on that income at a reduced rate. So this new tax regime has not drawn taxpayers in large numbers. So what is the difference here? So in case of the corporate tax, the government introduced something in the year 2019 saying that we are going to give a new types of tax rate which is just 15 percentage, but if you are going to opt this tax rate, you will not get any exemptions or deductions. And the government sees that it has a very good approach. People are welcoming it, the companies are welcoming it. And in the year 2001, they give something similar for personal income tax also. For personal income taxpayers, if the income taxpayers don't want to get deductions, exemptions for ATC, ATD, house rent allowance, travel allowance, and so on, they can go for a reduced tax rate. But it is seen that personal income taxpayers are not very much interested in this new reduced tax. They think that getting the exemptions and all these deductions under the old tax rate with the higher tax rate, it is more profitable for them. So you should know the difference between these new tax regime and the old tax regime. And the next topic is about cooking oil. So we are facing problems in cooking oil for a very long time, and some details about it. Indonesia is the world's largest producer and exporter, both, for palm oil, and it accounts for nearly 60% of the global output. So if you want, you can see here the value of Indonesia in palm oil is 45.5 million tons. The second place go to Malaysia, which is just 16.22 million tons. Now you can imagine how huge Indonesia is in this palm oil production. But at the same time, there is something very unique here. Indonesia being the largest producer of palm oil, it is also facing shortage in palm oil. So why is this? This is very rare for a country being the largest producer and also facing demand, also facing scarcity for the domestic region. They are facing shortages in the domestic market. So this is very rare. On the other hand, if we take sunflower oil, Ukraine and Russia alone, they produce 80% of the global sunflower oil. Sunflower oil, it is the world's third most exported vegetable oil after palm oil and soya bean oil. So you should know the first largely exported is palm oil, then comes soya bean oil, then comes the sunflower oil. This could be a question in prelims sometimes. So why is this problem? So why is Indonesia facing this shortage for its domestic market? One thing we saw that it exports most of its palm oil. The other thing is this palm oil is being used for biofuel as well. The Indonesian government since 2020 made 30% of blending of diesel with palm oil mandatory. So this caused the shortage of palm oil in the country. And the next thing to know is India is the world's biggest vegetable oil importer. Now, India has been the topmost importer of oil from Indonesia. But in the year 2021 and 22 alone, we have exported most of the oil from Malaysia. So normally we export the maximum oil, palm oil from Indonesia. For the year 2021-22 alone, we have imported most of the oil from Malaysia. Now, what is India doing it? So, India is trying to increase the production of palm oil. So, under this, the National Mission on Oil Seeds and Oil Palm. Under this scheme, India is pushing the production of palm oil. So, what is the concern here? So, apart from the ecological impact on growing this palm oil, incentivizing palm oil cultivation could have negative implications on farmer income, health, food security in the long run. So we know that earlier in the 1960s, when this MSP was given for wheat and rice alone, farmers stopped cultivating other crops like millets, grains, seeds, and so on, which caused shortage in these things, and which even ended up in the population of India becoming anemic, protein deficient, and so on. So when lot of MSP was given for wheat and rice, it seemed to be a great idea, but later on we saw the problems caused by it. So similarly, now when incentivizing this palm oil production, it will have its own implications as well. So on August 15, Prime Minister of India, he announced a support of rupees 11,000 crore to incentivize palm oil production. The government intends to bring an additional 6.5 lakh hectares under oil palm cultivation. So all these you can very well use in your mains exam. So you can see that 11,000 crore is given as incentive for oil palm production. India wants to bring 7.5 lakh hectare of land under oil palm production, because we are importing so much of oil, we are facing shortage. So we want to be self-sustainable in that, so we are incentivizing palm oil production. But there are some criticism for this as well. It could cause some problems also. So talking about this, let us see what is the yellow revolution of 1990s. It led to a rise in oil seeds production, though there has been a continuous increase in the production of diverse oil seeds such as groundnut, rapeseed, mustard oil, soybean oil, and so on. But yet we are not able to face the increasing demand, and we know that Indian people are known for using a lot of oil for cooking, so we are not able to face the demand. And in terms of geography, most of these oil seeds are grown in rain fed agricultural areas. So you have to know this, such questions are asked. So it is asked in, so it is sown mostly in rain fed agricultural areas, and the regions include Gujarat, Andhra Pradesh, Haryana, Karnataka, Rajasthan, Madhya Pradesh, Tamil Nadu, and Uttar Pradesh. So these are the areas where these oil seeds are mostly grown. And the National Mission on Edible Oils and Palm Oil to promote palm cultivation comes from the success stories of two Southeast Asian countries, that is Indonesia and Malaysia. These two countries, they had similar schemes, and seeing their success, India is also wanting to implement such a scheme. But studies on agrarian change in the Southeast Asia have shown that increasing oil palm plantations is a major reason for the region's declining biodiversity. So it becomes like only these crops are grown, other crops are being undermined, so it causes problem to biodiversity. So Indonesia has seen a loss of 1,15,495 hectares of forest cover. So this oil palm is causing deforestation. So if you have a question, that is, does oil palm cause deforestation? The answer is yes. The next topic is India's wheat opportunity. So what is India's wheat opportunity? Now we can see that due to the Ukraine war, the supply of wheat or the export of wheat to the world has reduced, and there is a shortage of wheat in the world. So can this be a great opportunity for India? Can this be used by India to export more wheat and gain more foreign resources? We know that Russia and Ukraine alone, they account for 30% of global wheat exports. Now because of the war, this has reduced, and it is seen as a good opportunity for India. And let us see this graph. Look at this graph, you can see that the blue line here is the MSP value for wheat, and this red line here, it is the global wheat price. And throughout the years, you can see that the global wheat prices and the MSP prices are almost similar. It just there are some small fluctuations, but they are almost similar. In certain years like 2009 and in 2013, you can see that there was a sudden jump in the global prices when compared to the MSPs, because MSPs are always the same almost. But here you can see that around 2021 and now in 2022 and all, there's a sudden shoot up in the global wheat prices. So can India gain out of this is the question. And India's wheat output has consistently exceeded its demand for the past 5 years. That is, which means that we have a lot of wheat in the Food Corporation of India, which is almost equal to 2.5 times, which is 2.5 times the normal buffer value. So we have more than the double that we actually need. And some data are, India is the second largest producer of wheat in the world. But having a closer look, the sustained wheat exports appear to be very much limited. So can we sustainably or can we continuously export wheat to the world? It's a great question mark, because we have to look it into a closer look. The available surplus of around 25 million tons, it has been accumulated for 5 years. After accumulation for 5 years, it is surplus. But if you take it as an average, for 1 year, it is just a surplus of 5 million tons. For per year, it is just surplus of 5 million tons. So this is a fraction of the nearly 60 million tons of wheat exported annually by Russia and Ukraine. So for 1 year, Russia and Ukraine together, they export 60 million tons of wheat. But what we have as a surplus, that is what as extra, apart from the Food Corporation of India, is just 5 million tons. Now you can understand, so exporting wheat sustainably to the world is not an easy job for India. Even at $500 per ton, it would be worth just $2.5 billion annually. So the amount that we are gaining also is not going to be a great amount. So exporting all the surplus stock would push up the domestic wheat prices also. This is another problem. So what are the problems? We are not meeting the demand. 60 million tons are needed. We just have 5 million tons. And the other one is, if we keep exporting the surplus, wheat prices in the domestic region could increase. India has the very bad distinction of being an unreliable trading partner. That is, you export for this year, next year you will say I don't have anything to export. So you cannot be reliable. India has a bad reputation of being not reliable in agricultural exports. So that is why we are having just 1% share of global wheat exports. We have only 1% share in export of wheat, despite being the second largest producer in the world. So what is the problem is, we are not very much sustainable. And moreover, 40% of all the output is procured by the government by giving 40% as MSP. By MSP alone, 40% of the production is taken by the government itself. And exports only occur when the export prices far exceed the MSP, because just when I get the MSP, why would the farmer take the risk of going through all the process in exporting his wheat? Just give it, get the MSP, that's all. If the price is very little much more, he's not going to care. Only if the export prices are too high, they're going to take the risk of doing that huge process for export. And for private players to route the surplus to exports, a large gap is necessary given the additional intermediary. So what is this additional intermediary? That is the price, the amount of money that they have to spend before sending that product to the market. That is the transport cost and all such things. And moreover, Food Corporation of India releases wheat into the market, traders buy from the market, and then they export it. So this is how the private players also export. The most of the wheat goes to the Food Corporation of India. Food Corporation of India releases it in the open market. The private buyers buy it and then they export it. And this concept is called as additional intermediary. This concept is called as additional intermediary. And the price of a producer can expect to receive is the FOB price. So finally what he gets in his hand is called as the FOB price. That is the price when loaded into the ship. So you buy wheat from a farmer, let us say, you have to spend for transport, you have to spend for storage, you have to spend for cleaning it and all those things. Finishing everything, what money he gets into his hand is called as the FOB. That is simply, it is called as free on board. When he boards it to the ship, what amount he is going to get, minus the cost of getting the produce from the farm to the factory. That is the expenditure I have to spend in transport and everything. If I remove that from the original amount I get as export value, so let us say I am getting 1 lakh rupees for the wheat I export, and I have spent around 50,000 rupees for this transport. The value I get at last is just 50,000. So this is also a problem. So this cost of transport is more in India when compared to the global average value. Now this FOB, free on board, at rupees 1.2 to move 1 ton per kilometer. So in India we have to spend 1.2 rupees to travel 1 ton of wheat for 1 kilometer. So to move your grain for 1 kilometer, 1 ton of grain, you have to spend 1 rupees 20 paise. And this is much higher when compared to the global average. This is through the freight, that is through the train. If you are going to take the road, it's even more higher. Road transport costs from wheat producing states are even higher. It is 4 rupees 50 paise for Uttar Pradesh and 2 rupees 80 paise for Madhya Pradesh. 4.5 for Uttar Pradesh and 2 rupees 80 paise for Madhya Pradesh. So for these states, if you have to harvest the wheat and from there to take it to the ship, so much money is costing for them. Domestic logistic cost, this is called as logistic cost, that is the transport cost. Domestic logistic cost in aggregate are over 13% of GDP. This is being in news for almost every year. So the logistic cost of India is 13% of GDP. But the world, in India it is 13%. For the world, it is just 8%. So you can see the huge difference in logistics. So that is why India is struggling so much on laying new roads, laying new railway track lines, introducing high-speed trains. We have something called as Trichy rail, which only the farmers can use for transport. So all such things are being introduced in India to bring down this logistic cost of 13% to 8% or less, which is actually the global average logistics cost. And apart from this, in container handling, India's cost per container is $1,374. But for countries like Thailand and Vietnam, it is just $759 or $913 respectively. So you can compare between $1,374 and in the case of Thailand, which is $759. This is the container handling price. So all these prices are high in India. So private players also, they find it very much difficult to export their wheat. Our neighboring country Bangladesh, they import wheat from Russia. We can see the difference. When Bangladesh is importing wheat way far away from Russia, they are not importing it from India. We can see the strategic condition here. In India, though we have surplus of wheat, we are not able to export it to the neighboring country of Bangladesh. A recent study showed that Indian agricultural produce faces more rejections in key export markets compared to other developing countries. So I hope you remember Once Europe rejected the mangoes from India, tea from India, these are examples. So India faces the highest amount of rejections in export compared to any other developing country. India has the highest number of consignment rejections in both European and US market despite a comparatively low level of agricultural exports. India is doing very little agricultural exports, and even in that small amount of agricultural exports, we are facing a lot of rejections because we are not able to meet the global export rights, the standards. Not delivering on quality or not honoring commitments sustainably have been the actual reasons for this. So you start exporting now, next year you say I don't have enough product for exporting. So this is a huge problem for India now. Okay, and moreover the quality is also a problem. So because of these things, India is continuously facing rejections from the various parts of the world. So we are trying to face all this, and we are trying to solve all these problems, and we'll see how far it goes. And that's it for this topics. Thank you. If you felt the content was useful for you, please share it with your friends as well. Let's learn and grow together. Jai Hind.